One day, you just stopped responding. No fight, no explanation, no dramatic ending. You simply went quiet. And the people who thought they knew you were left wondering what they did wrong. But here's what they didn't know, and what you might not fully understand yet either. This wasn't cruelty. This was survival. You've done it more than once. A friendship that felt suffocating. A relationship that drained more than it gave. A family dynamic that asked you to shrink in ways you could no longer afford. And so, you withdrew. Cleanly. Completely. Sometimes with relief. Sometimes with guilt that lingered long after the distance was set. And people called it cold. They called it avoidant. They called it immature. What they didn't call it, because they didn't have the language, was self-protection. People who cut others off are not simply difficult. They are people whose nervous systems learned a very specific lesson somewhere early in life. Connection is dangerous. Not always. Not with everyone. But enough times, with enough people who mattered, that the brain began to wire itself around a single, silent rule. It's safer to leave before you get left. Here's what psychology actually says about people who withdraw completely. This pattern, the clean break, the sudden silence, the wall that goes up without warning, is most often found in people who felt deeply, loved hard, and were hurt in ways that were never fully acknowledged. Not people who don't care. People who cared too much and ran out of ways to survive it. You are not cold by nature. You became careful by necessity. Here's what is happening inside the brain. When you've experienced repeated emotional pain, within close relationships, criticism that never stopped, love that came with conditions, people who left when you needed them most, your brain begins to associate intimacy with threat. Not consciously, not as a decision, as a learned pattern. Lights going out one by one, deliberately, protectively. This is called threat generalization, the process by which the brain extends its fear response beyond the original source of pain to anything that resembles it. So even safe relationships, it reads vulnerability as exposure. It reads dependence as a setup for an ending it has already survived before. And so, it does what it was built to do. It pulls the circuit breaker. It cuts the connection before the connection can cut you. Not distressed, just deeply still. This is not a character flaw. This is a nervous system doing its job, doing the only job it was ever taught. So, what do you do when the mechanism that protected you starts costing you more than it saves? Here are 4 principles. Not fixes, not cures. Principles for learning to move differently. Principle 1. Name the pattern before it acts. The urge to cut someone off rarely arrives as a thought. It arrives as a feeling, a tightening, a withdrawal, a sudden cold clarity that tells you, leave now. When something pushes you past your limit, your brain defaults to its oldest program. The practice is simple. Notice the urge before you act on it, not to suppress it. Just to name it. My system is going into protection mode. That single moment of recognition can create just enough space to choose rather than react. Principle 2. Distinguish depletion from danger. Not every draining relationship is a dangerous one. Some people exhaust you because they are harmful. Others exhaust you because closeness itself still feels like a threat your body hasn't fully processed. Learning to tell the difference is slow, difficult, and necessary. Ask yourself, am I leaving because this is harmful or because it's becoming real? For people with this pattern, intimacy often feels most threatening precisely when it is going well. When someone gets too close, too consistent, too safe, because the brain remembers what it means when something this good eventually ends. Principle 3. Practice micro-disclosures. You don't have to throw the door open. The nervous system learns safety through small, repeated experiences of closeness that don't result in harm. Not through grand vulnerability, but through tiny, deliberate moments. A small truth, a quiet admission, a feeling shared before you can take it back. Each one that survives teaches your brain something new. This time, it was safe. Principle 4. Grieve the connections you ended. Some of the people you cut off, some of them didn't. And somewhere in between, there may be grief you haven't allowed yourself to feel. Grief for what those connections could have been. Grief for the version of you that didn't yet know how to stay. Unprocessed emotional grief is one of the main reasons this pattern repeats. You don't have to reach back, but you may need to feel forward. Here's a simple way to understand it. Your pattern of withdrawal is like a circuit breaker installed in a house that once had faulty wiring. The breaker worked. It protected the house. It kept something from burning down that would have burned down without it, but the wiring has been repaired since then. Slowly, imperfectly. Through the years, the self-work, the quiet effort you've put into healing, the breaker doesn't know that yet. It still trips at the first sign of heat. Your work now is not to remove it. It's to slowly, carefully, let the house carry a little more current than it thinks it can hold. You are not someone who doesn't know how to love. You are someone who learned to love in conditions that made staying feel like surrender. And so, you left, again and again, before the ending could find you first. That strategy kept you intact, and it also kept you alone in ways that are now costing more than the hurt you were avoiding. You don't have to become someone who stays through everything. You just have to become someone who can tell the difference between a relationship worth leaving and a depth worth bearing. The people who cut everyone off are not empty. They are full of feeling they learned to contain, full of care they learned to protect, full of a self they refused to let the wrong people diminish. That is not coldness. That is the most loyal kind of love, the kind you kept for yourself.